Welcome back to Too Much Future, the show where we play through the Fallout games and we talk about, I'm Cameron.
I'm back. I'm Dark and Gritty Michael.
Oh, God. Dark and Gritty Michael again. All right, let's...
You'll notice that now I'm wrapped up in bandages and I'm hyped up on the word of the Lord.
Now, Dark and Gritty Michael, one does not generally associate darkness and grittiness with being quote-unquote hyped up on the word of the Lord. What happened there? What's going on with the dark and gritty lifestyle so that it became religious?
Well, here's the thing. As I was heading to my local church, and as I was walking, I accidentally was set on fire by a passing... I don't even know. I don't know how to do this bit. This sucks. This is all weird. This whole thing is extremely weird.
Are you? Hold on now. Now that was just a. I'm not going to be tricked again. Is this still Dark and Gritty Michael?
Dark and Gritty Michael left. It's just regular Michael now.
Wait, hold on. So you're just hey, regular Michael. How's it going?
Hi.
Are you? Oh, so you're aware of Dark and Gritty Michael?
Well, of course.
Well, give me 1 second here.
Okay.
Just listen to these words. I'm saying, home, home on the range.
What?
Okay. All right, that's interesting.
Huh.
All right, we'll figure that out. But so we played Honest Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
The good old-fashioned second they're not called DLC.
Yeah, now they're called add-ons.
Add-ons. The second add-on. No, we've been using DLC because it's the word for it. But the second add-on for Fallout New Vegas that, we said at the end of the last episode, has a kind of like, I don't know, reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on where you're at, it's, what kind of discourse network you're in. It's either a reputation that's like, hell yeah, height of the game, or WTF, bro, bad. And not a lot of in between, I'll say. And it could be that just no one who is lukewarm on anything is expressing opinions about 10-year-old Fallout New Vegas downloadable content. So that could be the reason for that. But it does seem like there are two pretty significantly different big responses to it. Where, like, for Dead Money, for example, not really significant differences of like, how people talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, I think that's good or bad, like this survival horror or whatever. It either works for me or it doesn't. But this, it's like, kind of two different things of it. I think you were telling me before this came out in May of 2011.
Yes.
And so we're in the springtime, a little springtime release for New Vegas. And this thing, I don't know, actually, how did you get involved in it? I think there's I did not. I just looked at the quest marker, right, and went to it. But there's like a radio signal or something.
Oh yeah. All of the add-ons, I should say, are sparked by radio signals. It was the same in Fallout 3. In this one, you pick up a signal from the Happy Trails Caravan Company saying that they are basically looking for armed people to work as guards during a caravan route. So precisely the sort of thing that actually you can do in the base game. I'm pretty sure you can like guard caravans, which is also a callback to things you could do at the very least in Fallout 2. And I'm pretty sure you could do that in Fallout 1 as well as a way to make some extra money. Yeah, so they just, it's just, this is the Happy Trails Caravan Company. Come to our weird cave in the north of the map. And we'll set off. Especially if you have a Pip-Boy is one of the things that they say.
Mm-hmm. Normally I wouldn't do this, but I actually walk around and talk to everyone. So you get there and there's a dude named like Jed.
Mm-hmm.
And Jed's like the one who wants to hang out. And then there's like a group of people who are going with him, right? And there's like a couple just normal guards. There's a guard named Stella who has like a long back. This is something that I really am associating with the add-ons for New Vegas is like, just a lot of connections to the other Fallout stuff, which I get is in New Vegas proper, but not nearly as densely. I don't think, and it could just be that like the way the add-ons work is like everything you're getting is kind of the tip of a spear, right? Like they don't have a lot of room or time to like, do the stuff. Oh, it's the New Vegas police coming to get me again for talking bad about the DLC.
Yeah,
but But so I talked to Stella, and Stella used to be a sheriff in someone named like Caliente, I think is the name of the place.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, she grew up in New Reno, and she like tells you what New Reno is like, and like
Yeah.
explains all that, and it's just New Reno from Fallout 2, and there's some jokes going on here. She says, you couldn't walk down the street without someone asking you to star in a porn film,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the Barkers, that you could see their little text above their head in Fallout 2. So there's some wink, wink, nudge, nudge stuff there. Unfortunately, she didn't tell me anything about the chosen one who came in and spent months and months in the Bishop's Casino murdering them.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that apparently did not pass into legend,
Mm-hmm.
but it should have. The man who lived in a casino and killed people.
During like a 2-month-long firefight.
Yeah. But that didn't. Did you talk to Ricky, the guy wearing a vault suit?
Yeah, I talked to him, and Lucky Nell has now a high enough medical stat that she could immediately recognize him as a psycho addict. Which I guess is it's interesting to me because it was something about how like he's outgoing and like accommodating or something. So that's a sign of being a psycho addict. But he was like, what? I'm not a psycho addict. And then I could just like keep pressuring him on that. And like, I didn't talk to him about anything else. This was just like the first conversation I had. So I like just keep bringing it up, and I'm like, yeah, man, once we hit the trail, like you're going to go through some withdrawals, and that's not going to be pretty. And then he gets so upset with me that he's just like, fine. And then he runs away. He like scampers out of the cave, and he's just gone.
Wow. You bullied Ricky.
Yeah, I bullied him out of the caravan.
That did not happen for me. What's is there any benefit for that?
I don't know. Because maybe you can tell me what happens if you don't bully him away, because for my purposes it just means that there's not another guy there. I think Jed says something about how like you're really important now since we lost the other guy with a pit boy, so I don't know if that means that I got paid more money for this or something. Who knows?
You can talk to Ricky about a bunch of different stuff, and I went down this long pathway where I totally get the psycho addict thing, less the outgoingness, but his like absolute just the lies he tells. So he's like, yeah, because he calls it like a pit boy, so you can talk to him about everything involved, and he was like, I'm from Vault 22, I think. And you can be like, well, I've been to Vault 22, and no one has lived there for hundreds of years. And he's like, well, I'm from there. What are you talking about? And he's like, and then I killed a Brotherhood of Clang or whatever, right? So he like gets all the names wrong, and I'm like, you killed a Brotherhood of Steel Paladin? And he's like, yeah, I shot him right through the eye socket, and I could use my training in the power armor to be like, well, the eye sockets are bulletproof, so I don't. He's like, I totally did it anyway, and so he just kind of keeps, doubling down on it. He talks about, I forget what he calls death claws, but he's like, I killed a bunch of death claws, and I could be like, you didn't kill any death claws, but I was able to kind of move through those conversations and push on him. In order to, I paid him 75 caps to convince Jed to let me carry more equipment. So because that's the thing, is you cannot go on this mission or start the thing with more than, I think, 70 pounds of equipment.
75.
75. And so I got up to 100.
Mm.
Which didn't really seem substantial enough for me, but whatever. I was able to do that through my barter skill. And Ricky's got a lot going on, but even that like density of conversation and like the number of like weird things you can pull in there, very uncharacteristic, I think, for most of the conversations in this game. Like I just was not able to use my power armor training perk to, very often in this game in a conversation dialogue. So a lot of density around that kind of thing in these things. But I talked to those people, and then I got on down the trail, a happy trail, as it were.
Mm-hmm. And then everyone dies.
Yeah, do they have to die?
Yeah, this is all scripted. Okay. And you get some information about this ahead of time, right? Who are these people and what are they doing? And it's very Fallout 2. because Jed explains, I don't know if you had this conversation with him, but he explains, like, why are they on this route? How did this route come to exist? What are the settlements that they are going to? What did those settlements look like? What were those places like pre-war, right? All of this stuff is kind of growing out of Interstate 15, right? The remains of that. So again, very Fallout 2, very much like kind of traces of the pre-war infrastructure persist, and different kinds of social arrangements pop up around that sort of thing. So they're specifically trying to get into contact with, I believe, New Canaan, which is a settlement in Utah. And as we will discover, but I think maybe he implies this as well, it's the remains of Ogden, I think, the city of Ogden, and it's basically Mormon country, although the word Mormon is never used in this game.
Yeah, well, New Canaan and Ogden are two different places.
Okay.
I think, because he says that, I mean, you can get this density of like trader discussions going on, because he says basically the reason that this like DLC mission is occurring is that the pathway they used to use, they can't use anymore. It's been like destroyed. And so they're looking for like, the Northeast Passage, not the same, quite the same, but the same idea, right? It's like they're trying to find a new trade route, because if they go north to Ogden, which I think has been destroyed, if they go north to Ogden, it's just way too far. And so they won't make any money. So they have to find the direct route, and that's what they're doing. Yeah, New Canaan is somewhere further on than Ogden, but they also, the Mormons who are not, the New Canaanites, they also control Ogden, I think. And there's like some interesting stuff going on there too, like quote-unquote lore-wise. Happy Trails Trading Company is not a long-distance trading company for the most part. Jed will tell you that they are a short loop, or the little loop, I think is what it's called, trader, as opposed to the big loop. And if you remember Fallout 2, you could get involved in the big loop or the little loop, Brahmin trading thing. So yeah, you're right. It's all like kind of bouncing back into that. But then we get this. So after you have that long conversation, we get a intro to the add-on, like slide deck that tells you everything. Like do you want to summarize this thing? Do you remember this better than I do?
No, absolutely not. But the big picture is like, we are going to what used to be like Zion National Park in Utah. That's happening. There are a couple of things going on in Zion. Namely, there are tribes, right? Some tribals, distinct groups of tribals are coming to blows in this region. And mixed up in all of this is the Burned Man, Joshua Graham, who used to be Caesar's legate, who is now Lanius, right? We talked about him at the end of the main quest. It's that massive guy with the masks that you have to like talk down at the end. Or fight in your case. Anyway, he's actually the second person to hold this position. The first person was this dude named Joshua Graham, who basically he operated as the commander of Caesar's armies, and he led the disastrous charge on the Hoover Dam that everyone is talking about in the main game, the one where NCR and the Legion first kind of came to blows and the Legion was put down. So to show that failure would not be tolerated, Caesar had Graham covered in pitch, set on fire, and thrown into the Grand Canyon. However, word soon spread that he had not, in fact, died, that he had survived, and was still somehow stalking the Mojave. And the legend was that the Burned Man lives, or the Burned Man walks. And I think way back in one of the first episodes of this run, I mentioned that you can see this graffiti on the back of like one of the billboards outside of Prim or Novak or something. One of the first towns you go to, you can see the graffiti talking about the Burned Man. So that's how long back these hooks were kind of being laid.
The DLC has a reputation for like complexity of plot and really kind of digging into this kind of Caesar's Legion stuff. Like, I've never played this before, but I know that, that there's this kind of like explanation of some of the mechanisms of what set up the conflict in the main game that are here. And I really assume that I would have to explore and kind of figure that out on my own, but it is 99%, at least of what I received in this DLC, and we can talk about that as we get there. But 99% of it is here in this opening crawl.
Yeah.
Like, there's not much more I learned about this here in the thing, which makes me believe that there must be more stuff going on in the other DLCs, or I just missed a whole lot here. I'm not quite sure.
Mm-hmm. I had a very similar experience to you, I will say. I found this big picture, right? This add-on, much like the previous add-on, it's a little story. It's not as much of a story as Dead Money was, but it is like a little story with like, here's some characters in this situation. They have these goals and desires, and you know, it's either going to work out for them or not, and that is what the end of the game is. And yeah, I don't know if I suspect I potentially like locked myself out of some dialogue options that might have made this more interesting from kind of the plot and lore perspective. But I'll talk about that when we get there. That was just kind of, you know, overall big picture was like, like we've said, I have heard very good things about this DLC and also very bad things. And mostly my experience was like seeing a lot of the bad things, particularly with its handling of indigeneity and sort of the way that it's trying to like think through race, I guess. Like that was all there. And then there were like interesting little plot hooks. But all in all, the plot stuff felt incredibly shallow based on what I have heard other people say about this.
Yeah, it's pretty thin across the board. Or it feels pretty thin to me, which suggests to me I just missed some stuff, or that is backfilled somewhere else, and I'm just not quite aware of it. But yeah, let's talk about the big thing. Because I mean, the plot beat by plot beat, not a lot going on here. Well, actually, let's talk. So everyone dies, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
I'll entree us into this. Everyone dies, as you said, and you're being attacked by people called the White Legs, who are, you know, a tribal group. It's exactly the same way that we've talked about, quote-unquote, tribals, going back to Fallout 2 in particular. You know, think about the you know, Arroyo, and think about Sulik, and think about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same set of aesthetics, the same set of ideas, kind of just projected forward a little bit. In time, we're attacked by them, kills everyone else in the convoy or caravan. We cross a bridge, and then we're being like fired on, pew 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 pew, by someone with like a machine gun.
Mm-hmm.
Very unclear to me how. By the way, the White Legs, this tribal group, very unclear to me how they all have like hyper powerful weapons. That was not explained to me at any point.
It was to me, so we'll talk about that.
Oh, okay. So well, they do have them. And just laying into me, and then they're killed from behind. And then a dude starts yelling down to me, and his name is Follows Chalk.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it's very funny that for you they were killed from behind, because for Lucky Nell, I killed them both. And then the game wouldn't go out of VATS because it had to wait for Follows Chalk to walk up and then pull his gun and start firing on the corpses.
So it's walking in slow-mo.
Mm-hmm.
He's taking his time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very funny. No, I mean, right, I've got a melee weapon. They're firing on you from a long way away, and I was like, you know, dip diving behind trees and whatnot. And eventually got there. For people who are curious, I mostly used Neffy's Driver, the golf club, through this DLC. Had a great time hitting Yao Guai and knocking them into the sky. Literally at one point, I knocked one somehow vertically, like 200 feet, and it fell out of the sky and died. Hopefully that'll be in the footage. But, you know, that's what I'm... So it took... He was able to get there way before I did in this case. But we get Follows Chalk, and something you might notice immediately is this very much kind of native framing, right? Especially like when we're talking about the like indigenous frames or native frames or whatever around the tribals, right? This is like a set of media representations that almost wholly exist on their own, right? Like these are not... I would not even put them in the category of like direct representations of native peoples, period. They're like a colonizing imaginations, representation from movies they saw of natives, right? Like it's so far daisy chained, and simulacrified away from its original source that it is baffling, just to be frank with you. It is like not shocking, because there's nothing shocking about it if you've seen a movie. If you saw Johnny Depp as Tonto in a multi-million-dollar film, around the same time, right? That's like 2013, 2014, somewhere.
Yeah, sometime around then, because it was just after the Pirates trilogy.
Yeah, so you're not going to feel anything different here. And if you've seen any movies about natives made by people who are not native, this is very familiar territory in a broad sense. And so that's what's happening here immediately. With Follows Chalk, right? He has a name that is kind of daisy chain related to real naming practices from real native groups, but is within the Fallout framework. He is covered in tattoos that are kind of just genericized, quote unquote, native tattoos, right? They're not pulled from real life. But they kind of feel like, a meme during that time period is people who have quote unquote tribal tattoos. Well, what tribe are you from? Right? Like muscly guy from New Jersey.
Yeah.
That it's that level of kind of abstraction from its original use case. And then he's wearing a baseball hat that has been converted into like a headdress or like a war bonnet, kind of. It's got the feathers coming out the top and kind of down the back. And he's wearing like a loincloth, maybe, something like that. So he's like this composite set of representations that are like very far away from both anything positive and anything that even feels remotely real. He also talks in what I could only call like native voice.
Yeah, he's got a particular like cadence, and I don't know. It's sort of like it has to do with sort of like almost like sentence construction and syntax, right? It's not quite doing the most stereotypical like 19th century like version of this, but it's very, very close.
Yeah, and so the whole package is maybe aiming for plausibility and lands solely, especially in 21, into almost parody, right? Like, I don't think you could make a worse mistake. I don't think you could not construct this on purpose to be much worse than it is. Other than like having him do a war dance immediately as soon as you see him, right? And so it sticks out and is difficult and is, I don't use this word very often because I don't think it does much, but it is problematic, as the parlance goes. And I would say that all of the tribal ideas that follow through in this DLC are about the same. They are ahistorical. They treat indigeneity as like a stage of human development and not as just a set of separate cultures that are on a different trajectory around what they value and what they're doing and what their material conditions are. It is 100% what we've called, in our Fallout 2 episodes, just the anthropological racist imagination. It is a 19th century way of thinking about the relationship between quote unquote civilized groups and quote unquote uncivilized groups, and how the civilized necessarily emerge from those, and how in times of crisis or trauma or violence that the civilized will recede back into some sort of previous stage of human development.
Yeah. So just to jump a little bit ahead to provide some more grounding for this, you asked how the White Legs had all of these guns. Well, eventually we meet Joshua Graham, and we can have some conversations with him. And one of the ones that I had sort of explained this to me. So Zion there's one tribe that lives in Zion, right? They sort of like formed in Zion and like call it their home. They're called the Sorrows. And we'll talk more about them later. But the other tribe that is important here, and it's the one that Graham is working with, and it's the tribe that Follows Chalk belongs to. They're called the Dead Horses, and they're from a place called Dead Horse Point. And they have traveled to Zion under Graham's orders because Graham wants to help the Sorrows evacuate Zion. Graham wants to help the Sorrows face off the White Legs, who are invading Zion, essentially. And as Graham explains, both the Dead Horses and the Sorrows have a taboo, and that's the word that he uses, a taboo against going into pre-war buildings. So the Sorrows have spent their, history since they were, came about or whatever in Zion, but have not gone into any of the pre-war buildings. And similarly, whatever's going on with the Dead Horses, they've, had their history, have not done any pre-war things. It's the Whitelegs who have no such taboo. And so they broke into an armory and have been getting like pre-war weapons out of that ever since. And so the problem, right, as Graham sees it, is that there are these groups of people who have a kind of cultural barrier against going into these buildings and like getting technology that may help them. So he's come in to kind of protect them against the evil outside force that has no such qualms. So there's a real like sense here of I mean, it's a white savior narrative, right? These people are so sort of, and Graham, for like, I guess to his credit, right, or to credit to how, insofar as this DLC can merit these ideas, right? He does not. He very clearly does not see like his tribe, the New Canaanites, and he refers to them as his tribe. Like he does this weird thing that is like a rhetorical trick, essentially. I don't know if it's fully successful, but he sees the New Canaanites and the Dead Horses and the Sorrows as like all just the same type of thing. And he is just like beholden as like someone who knows, like who has like different cultural practices to come in and like help this other group that has, its own sort of set of cultural practices. And then later on, he tells you all about how the Whitelegs are basically goblins. So this is the other problem with,
That's true.
with yeah, this is the other problem with the add-on that we've talked about back in Fallout 3 with the Raiders, is that it's on the one hand trying to say like, look at these two cultures, the Sorrows and the Dead Horses, and they've got like their own belief systems and kind of their own sort of cultural practices, and we learn little bits about that. So it's like, the sense that, oh, these are quote unquote real people, even though they don't feel real at all. But that sort of feels like what it's trying to do for me. And then it's also like, and then also there's another tribe, and they're all just irrevocably evil. Because, and you can say like, well, that's what Joshua Graham is saying, and you don't have to sort of go with him on that. And I did not go with him on that. And what ended up happening is like, I sort of got locked out of what was clearly like the desired path for the back half of this plot.
We'll talk about that when we get there, because I similarly got locked out of something that felt like it might have been important. But yeah, so there's this weird thing that's going on here, right, where Joshua Graham and also the other guy,
Daniel.
Daniel, they both seem pretty aware of like the colonialist trope, right? Like the white savior trope and that kind of thing. And then, and so like clearly the people who are working on this are aware that these things exist. And then they just do it anyway.
Yeah.
And not just in the relation, obviously in the relationship to the Whitelegs, but in the whole thing itself, right? They're like, oh yeah, you have Joshua Graham saying things like, oh yeah, we're from different cultures. And like, I'm just trying to help out because we're just going to get slaughtered. And I don't want to be their savior. But then, you talk to the Dead Horses. You talk to the Dead Horses, and they're like, yeah, he's our god.
Yeah, they worship him as a god.
Yeah, they like, but I don't. Okay, we got to take a little bit of detour away from talking about this to talk about what is the fixation on Joshua Graham and the 45.
Oh, what do you mean? Do you mean like outside the game or in the game itself?
Just period. Michael, we're here and we're gonna tell people about what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
We put it in the middle of the episode now.
Woo! Middle of the episode.
Woo! Patreon.com/RangeTouch. It's where you can get all kinds of stuff from us. You can support us for as little or as much as you want to. If you give us at least $3 a month, though, you can listen to this as an RSS feed, as a podcast rather than watching it on YouTube if you want to do that. That is your prerogative. You can do it if you want. But we got all kinds of other shows you might like Just King Things and Game Study Buddies and Homestuck Made This World. So if you like this show, I promise you will like those other ones, even if you don't care about the content that's in them. We make it fun and exciting and all that kind of stuff. Michael, what should they do with this video if they're watching it on YouTube?
You should like this button. That's what you need to do. You need to like the button.
Yeah, like the button. That's important. Don't like the video.
I've gone to YouTube University, and that was like the number one lesson they gave us is like the button and also comment the subscribe.
Yeah, you have to comment the subscribe.
That makes the algorithm more likely to show us to people, and that helps a lot. Just leaving a little message does not matter what the content is, but we prefer it if it's nice. You can answer a question. The question that I'm going to ask you now to answer in the comments for the algorithm is, if you were in the post-apocalypse, what kind of hat would you constantly be wearing?
I'm going to ask you a second question, a follow-up, if you don't want to answer that one. And it's something, because this is in the middle of the episode, you won't have context for, so you got to listen to the rest of the episode to understand it. But the question is, would you fart in the water at Zion National Park?
If you have farted in the water at Zion National Park, let us know. Let the algorithm know. Let the world know what you stand for.
Yeah, tell us. Okay, that's it. That's the end of the little ad break. Beep, beep, boop, boop, boop. Back to the episode. In any case, because, like, here's the thing. Joshua Graham, you meet him for the first time. He's cleaning a bunch of 45s. Like 45 handguns.
This scene.
That animation, right? He's doing it. He's doing it. He's like, he's cool.
He's like,
right?
hello. He's like I expected a different courier. Do you like my movie trailer voice?
Yeah, he expected a different courier. This is, again, the other courier we've heard about so much. I'm assuming this comes up somewhere else in another DLC. So 45s, when Joshua Graham becomes your ally, if you get him as a follower for a little while, he increases your damage and decreases spread with a 45. Everything around here is going on with 45s, right? Like 45 ammunition is like a huge part of this whole DLC. And there was something else here too that showed up in this Joshua Sawyer Q&A stuff that we were talking about, where it also mentions a 45 too. And I just don't, it's like this weird gun fetishist thing that does not seem to fit anywhere else in this DLC, and yet it's like front and center constantly. And I just didn't know if there was something I missed.
I mean, I don't know if there's anything I can offer that is going to like specifically resolve this, but I can say one of the things that is helpful, I think, for understanding what's up with Graham as a character is that he was intended to be in Van Buren, the canceled Fallout 3 from Black Isle. And he was one of Sawyer's, I think, sort of pet characters. And one of the things that I think unites a lot of the add-ons for New Vegas is that it's Sawyer and Avalone getting to take kind of pet characters from Van Buren and like give them new life. So really what is going on with Graham, and I don't even mean this in a wholly disparaging way. I just mean like we're meeting someone's cool OC. Right. This is why we get his movie trailer voice, and we get like that scene of him checking all those 45s and just like endlessly moving them from one pile to another. And that was in the trailer for this game. Right. They were like I sent you the link to the trailer, but I don't remember if you watched it.
I didn't. I forgot.
They use Graham and his voiceover as a selling point. Like, I think one of the strategies here seems to be like, you saw that stuff about the Burn Man and the lore in the base game. Well, get ready to meet the Burn Man himself, and he's gonna be a badass. And I mean, I guess he is. He's got about like maybe, strangely enough, 45 seconds of badass in him before he just becomes another NPC. But yeah.
Got it. Yeah, and he definitely has the vibe of a cool OC.
Killian Darkwater.
And that's okay. He is I'm 100% a Killian Darkwater. That should be cool. OCs should just be renamed Killian Darkwaters. But yeah, he has that exact same vibe of like too unique. He's got too much he has one too many things going on. But because you can't pare down, you don't want to pare down your cool OC. You want him to be as maximally cool as possible. So
well, it's not just that anyway. He's like the guy who was Caesar's second in command, who failed Caesar, and then like survived this legendary public execution, right? But now spends the rest of his life walking around the wasteland, constantly bandaging himself up and unbandaging himself. And also he has become like a diehard 100% like believer in Jesus Christ. And just spending like trying to he doesn't even ever phrase it as like trying to work off the evil that he's done. He's just like, I've been saved and now I'm trying to save other people, right? And he's just like so hardcore in everything that he does.
Yeah, but he also needs to have a signature weapon. It's there's the point where he like stops you after you've done something, and he's like just talking to you, and he gives you like a long Bible quote about like the fall of Babylon. And it's not one line, it's not Jesus, where it's like one line, bing, bang, boom, oh, here's the thing, teach a man to fish, blah, blah, blah. It's like 4 or 5 solid lines of biblical text. And he's just rocking off the dome. And it's like, okay, all right, man, I get it. I get what you're about. But yeah, so it's really interesting here, just to kind of close up the conversation about the kind of representational politics going on here. It's nothing shocking, like I was saying. It is a continuation into just a slightly different visual field of all the same things from Fallout 2. I don't think it's complicated in very many more ways than that. You've heard us talk about it, so don't want to belabor it. But there are a couple things that are interesting about it that are maybe worth digging into really briefly. One is that the groups, the tribals that are here, are a combination of real native groups that had been here before, ? And tourists.
Yeah.
And that's why like some of them speak Pennsylvania Dutch or like something really close to it. I actually sent you a message. I was like, like what's happening?
Yeah.
Like because they like speak German, I think.
Yeah. When you meet the dead horses, they're all speaking in kind of weirdly like a sort of drifted version of German. And you asked me if they were Pennsylvania Dutch. And I am not clear on how much of this can be explained in game. I know in game there's a reference to like people coming over from the res, and it's clear that no one in the game, I guess, like knows what the res is, but that's what you call a reservation. And then when in Joshua Sawyer's responses on like I think it's like Tumblr and Formspring, where a lot of this material was put up, he explains that these were not supposed to be like just pre-war tribes that continued into the present. They were like an intermingling of like tourists who were visiting Zion and some Navajo from a nearby actual reservation. And this is sort of put forth as kind of like as a response to the critique of the representation here, right? But actually, I don't think it gets around that critique. Because rather than saying like, well, listen, like the point, right, is I think something like, listen, they're not actually native people, so we don't have to talk about this, that, or the other about how they look and how they act and how they speak. And actually, right, the fact that fictionally they are not quote unquote real native people, really raises the question then of like, so why do they look like the 19th century imaginary of native people? Like, how did that happen? Like, why? How did history loop around on itself like this? Like, why is it that all of these German tourists who were trapped in a national park post-war did nothing to preserve any aspect of like being German aside from how they say hello?
Yeah, and so it's this like structural imagination. There are stages of civilization. If civilization collapses and you live in San Francisco, you become a crust punk, and if civilization collapses and you're in a national park, you become an indigenous American for some reason.
Now,
And not just like a particular group, right? Just a genericized imagination of like what it means to be native.
yeah, you're going to start putting feathers in your hat.
Gonna start putting feathers in your hat. You're gonna start making like what appear to be in a big chunk of them like Aboriginal drawings of people, right? That they don't even look like Native American, Native North American kind of visual cultures, right? And so it's this like complete inability to understand that like that culture exists, right? And that civilization is not a set of progressive steps, but in fact there's just a lot of different approaches based on your material conditions to what you build out of the world. Unless you have more to say about that, let's talk about plot, even though there's not that much of it.
I have one more sort of little pitch to make to you, because I was thinking through this. So this is Fallout. And there is no reason, imagine with me, Cameron, an alternative Honest Hearts, where you go into Zion. Everything kind of operates more or less as we've described it so far. But then when you meet the tribe here, it is straight up just a bunch of 1950s echoes of 1950s Germans, right? Or even better yet, right? Like they become like weird little they're wearing like approximations of like lederhosen and things,
yes,
right? And they built little like Swiss lodges or something. And they're just like hanging out in the middle of Zion, and like, yeah, we're the dead horses.
They have cuckoo clocks and wooden shoes, right? Like things that don't really fit with Germans, and yet we would do it. They would be like inventing chemistry constantly.
Yes.
Yeah, and if that happened, we'd be like, what the shit is happening here? And yet, when that happens with native groups, right, that's, oh yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, because that's how history works.
That's how history works. But if this happened literally with anyone else, it would be like, what are you talking about? So a little bit of food for thought, I guess. But yeah, that would be way better, actually. I would love that. And yeah, they're wearing like animal hide lederhosen.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Is like, wouldn't it be so funny to like, just like, I have remade like a fantasized version of mid 19th century Germany with everything I could find in a national park.
We have remade German here. We have remade the homeland. That's an honest heart for you. But so we meet Joshua Graham in his cool thing, and he says, look, the Whitelegs are knocking everyone's shit apart. You need to go, because none of these people will go because they have this taboo, this social taboo. They won't go into any pre-war stuff. Can you go get all these pre-war items for us and then take it to Daniel, my buddy, who is also from New Canaan? And by the way, New Canaan was destroyed. It was like exploded. Good luck with that. And we're kind of, there's a little bit of a vibe of like the missionaries or the refugees from New Canaan have come here to turn the tribals into New Canaanites.
Yeah.
And that's not complicated or pushed forward in any kind of way, one way or the other. But there's this kind of thing of like, well, I guess we're all one people now.
Yeah.
Good luck with it. But so you go do that, and he's thankful for it, and then he says, hey, I need you to go do that same thing again, but for other locations. I need you to go make sure. And then they pitch kind of two different, I'm really not shortcutting that much here. Then they pitch two different kind of plans. One is setting it up so that the people in New Zion, the tribals, can escape in the cover of night away from the Whitelegs. And that's Daniel's plan. And then Joshua Graham's plan is, let's just kill them all.
Yeah.
Let's just exterminate the Whitelegs, and then we'll go from there. Along the way, I found some interesting stuff. There are a bunch of dead Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
Which was pretty rough. There's a cave. They keep telling the story about an old man in a cave that's like for the tribals here. And you can find the old man. Yeah, the Soros. And you can find the cave that they're talking about. There was like a survivalist who'd been living in the valley, and some people escaped from a place called the School at some point, because you can read his like little thing. And I didn't get much more info from that. Do you know what that's about?
Not about the school specifically, because that's the thing that's kind of the most interesting to me. So there's the survivalist who, and if you find all of his like little journals, the story you piece together is basically this. He had a wife and kids. He would go off on sort of like weekend expeditions or excursions to like hike through various national parks and camp and so on. And he happened to be doing this during the Great War. So he goes back to wherever he's from. I think he's living in like the Pacific Northwest or something. Can't find his wife and child, so they're dead. So he goes back to Zion and just basically camps out there. He encounters like a group of Spanish speakers that he assumes are like refugees from Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
There's some stuff that happens with, they end up getting, I think, killed by raiders or something. He encounters ghouls at another point. He's like, what the heck is this? But yeah, then he finds a group of children, and this is sort of far enough after the war that it's not like these were kids who were in school when the bombs fell. Because I think by this point he's been in Zion, like camped out for maybe 30 years or something. And so he like sees this group of children who keep talking about the school and trying to scare each other with stories of the principal. And two things are happening here. One is that because this is two things are happening here in my head, I guess I should say. One is that because this is so far kind of post-war, it does make me like want to know, like, so what sort of weird, messed up, like Fallout situation was this school, right? Like,
Yes, yeah.
like, was this some sort of like a lab run by an AI that had gone off the rails or something, right? Because that's the kind of thing that happens in these games.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is because of sort of the proximity to like the res and like the indigenous stuff, is this feels weirdly evocative of native boarding schools also. Like, I don't know, like
yeah,
that.
it does.
I don't.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that.
Yeah, so these kids escape from the school, and then the survivalist just basically watches them from afar and like protects them as kind of like his replacement children. And also, I think at one point, by the way, he meets another survivor. He meets there are people from Vault 22 who show up who all have Vault 22 was the one that was filled with like all those weird plants with like spore diseases.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And so all of them die except for this one woman who he they start a relationship and she gets pregnant and then she dies in childbirth. So he's lost a wife and a child twice over, and then he like focuses on these little kids and he like protects them from afar and sort of raises them. And then when he gets old enough and he's going to die, he leaves them a message saying that, you know, Zion is yours. It's like a reward for all your struggle and sorrows. And this is where the sorrows come from. It is a tribe that is like born, quote unquote, from worshiping this guy as kind of a mythologized father figure. So here with that and all of the talk of taboos, of course, we have like the structural anthropological racism of like Freudianism, totem and taboo, right? This is Freud's theory for like how society forms into tribes originally, about sort of like the mythologized loss of the original father figure. So that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I think is interesting here is that like this is Firewatch.
There,
sort of.
Yeah. Yes, because yeah, we're going up to those little things and looking around. It's also Assassin's Creed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Fallout stapling in like synchronization points into its system, which is like an interesting idea. I don't think that's a bad idea. Like, go up to a high spot and then allow people to, get some local locations kind of mapped onto the map. I think that's really cool. I think that works better in Fallout than it might do in many other games. I would really love if Fallout introduced like a State of Decay style system where you can like get up at a high point and then pull out some binoculars and mark locations, so you gotta physically know where they are in relationship to you. But yes, there's some fire watchiness to it. I definitely put on a park ranger hat as soon as I found one.
I kept on Boone's beret, but otherwise Lucky Nell is actually running around in the evening gown that she got off of Vera from Dead Money.
I'm wearing power armor and a ranger hat. You don't want to mess. You don't want to mess with Tonk. He's you better not litter on that trail. But yeah, so you do that, and you kind of bebop around, and kind of clear these things out, and then you have your big choice to make. You either go with Daniel or you go with Joshua Graham.
Yeah, and this is the part where Graham explains how, like, I've seen the white legs, and he explains how they have no culture. They just steal and take from other people. They can't survive on their own. They're like fully parasitical. Again, right? They're goblins. Like there's no humanity to them. And you could rationalize this in fiction because, like, the White Legs are the people who, like, cleared out New Canaan and destroyed the place where Joshua Graham lives and obviously feels very strongly about. But the game does not present you with any real way to, like, push back on these ideas because fundamentally, like, you have to accept it as a premise for how this DLC works.
Yes. It's just because otherwise you're like, well, can I go talk to the White Legs? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what's the choice you make? How'd you do all of this?
Well, I first off, I just wanted to see what would happen, so I killed Graham. Pretty hard to kill him because he's wearing, like, SWAT armor. So I just like whipped out a shotgun and blew him to pieces. This
from the Salt Lake City Police Department.
Yes.
Too.
This makes literally everyone on the map hostile to you, which is fun.
No, why'd you do that?
Just see what would happen. Because, like, seriously, right? I was sort of testing the boundaries of the simulation because, like, from my perspective, like, Lucky Nell is not like, oh yeah, like, yeah, sure, let's exterminate the White Legs. That feels like a fine thing to do. So, like, can I turn against Graham, right? Because the other thing is, like, Graham talks about religion quite a bit, and you can be either sort of accepting of that, or you can be a little bit skeptical, or you can kind of consistently sort of mock him or needle him. And from a role-playing perspective, this is another thing to say about these DLCs right now, actually. It is clear that you are not supposed to roleplay the character that you're playing in the main game. Like, there, like, these, both Dead Money and this were kind of scripted in such a way that, like, the wackiness that is present in the main game just goes out the window. So, when Graham talks about, like, what God is, about how it's this force that controls everything, and we have to, like, respect it, and so on and so forth. Well, this sounds an awful lot like luck to Nell. So, ideally, I would be able to explain to him, listen, man, you've confused gods here, right? Your god doesn't exist. Luck does, and you need to start gambling. But no, I just kind of, like, needle him a little bit. And I think I think his opinion of me gets low enough that I can't ask him or talk to him about any of the other, like, good crunchy lore bits about his time with Caesar's Legion. So I miss out on basically all of that stuff. He doesn't end up hating me, but it's very funny when he shows up and gives you his plan for, like, exterminating the White Legs, like, quotes all this stuff from the Bible, and he's like, here's why we need to do it, blah, 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 blah. Like, he really gives you a hard sell. And then Lucky Nell's response is just like, no, I think I'm going to help Daniel. Like, we're just going to have them escape. And he's like, okay.
Yeah, he's an interesting character because he will back the other guy. I'm not quite sure. Does Daniel back Joshua Graham? He must.
I guess. I don't know. I didn't go the other way.
I didn't go the other way there, but I did do that. I went with, yeah, it's probably better to leave than to try to fight this group.
I mean, the other thing, right, is, like, from another perspective, like, they wiped out New Canaan.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, no, I think we should leave the park.
Yeah, I mean, that was my kind of rationale. Like, it seems like that's going to be extremely hard. It seems like they will die. It seems like, this will be a war. I'm pretty sure the White Legs, right? It's explained somewhere here that they are doing this. They are fighting the new Canaanites as a way of
joining Caesar's
appealing
Legion.
to Caesar, right?
Yeah. This is that's the thing we've touched on before, where, like, certain tribes will basically petition to join Caesar's Legion by showing how ruthless and bloodthirsty they can be in combat. And they think that this is going to get them some sort of leg up. But of course, whenever they get assimilated, it's, brutal for them as well. But yeah,
Mhm.
this is the other thing that sort of irritates me is that like I get to tell Joshua Graham that I've killed Caesar, and he's like, well, that's hard to believe, but I guess it's finally happened. But also, it has no effect on like what the White Legs are up to, or like how they conceive of the Legion or anything. Which to some
Mhm.
extent, I understand. I understand the point is like, the Legion is a thing that is going to fall apart in Caesar's absence, but it's not going to be immediately. It's going to persist in kind of certain forms as it continues to splinter and fracture and things like that. Um,
Mhm.
but I don't know. I just wish that, like, I don't know, I killed Caesar, and so the White Legs suddenly don't really understand why they're petitioning to a dead man now.
Well, yeah, but that breaks the goblins would have to be capable of speech,
Mhm.
right, to like make that logically work.
Right.
And so it's just the video gamey nature of it, and also the dev time,
Yeah.
right? Just the
Yeah.
proliferation of choices is but yeah, you're right, like objectively correct. So I did that, and so I'll give you my like end, and you can tell me how this whole thing ends for you.
Okay.
I say, all right, I'm going to go with Daniel's plan. We're going to do it.
Mhm.
And Joshua Graham says, I think that's a bad idea, but let's do it anyway. I'll be your buddy. He becomes my follower. We have to walk our way to the tunnel where the Soros are. I guess it's all of them. So all the groups are trying to leave.
Mhm.
And we have to make our way to the tunnel that they're going to take in order to leave the valley.
Mhm.
I walk my way there. I have one little event that I do, which is where I like kill some people on a bridge, and then I get there at the end, and this maybe is the wrong choice to make. So there are a bunch of White Legs fighting Daniel's little contingent of people, and there's like a named enemy there that's looking pretty scary and all this stuff. And so I didn't really think about it, and I just threw a grenade into the middle of all of them.
Oh.
And then the named guy didn't die,
Mhm.
and he came for me, and so I had to do a little melee combat, boop, 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 boop. And then when I turned around, everyone except for Daniel and Joshua Graham were dead.
Oh dear.
Now, did I kill them? I don't know, but I can't rule that out.
Mhm.
But so I talked to Daniel. I was like, "Hey, Daniel, I'm here. I did it. I like cleared the pathway. Like all the, everyone's good to go. They're ready to go." And he was like, "We have beefed it so bad, bro." It's like, I can't believe we could not have done this worse. All right, blow this tunnel up. Goodbye. And then they leave. And I blew a tunnel up, and then that was the end of the DLC. So I don't know. Maybe I totally messed it up. Maybe that's just the way it happens if you don't go out of your way to like clear a bunch of roads or something.
Mhm.
I didn't get a quest marker for that, but maybe that was just me not paying close enough attention. I don't know what happened there, but ultimately I got the worst. I think the worst possible ending you can get in the whole thing.
So for me, same, right? I'm like scurrying around with Joshua. Um, I try to talk to him to see if I can get some good lore out of him, and he's just like, "There's no time for talk." So, great, I guess.
Yes, same. Because I was like, okay, let's progress as far to the end of this thing as I can, and then I'll like really talk to Joshua Graham and get all this info. And I soft locked myself out of info. It seems like.
Mhm. So, yeah, I didn't get to learn in game basically anything about Graham. And I am scurrying around with him. I also want to say, like, in terms of positives, I do think that Zion as a location does a good job at feeling very distinct from other places in the main game. It feels distinct from Dead Money. It's a different type of like combat because there's a lot of like crouching down into bushes and like sneaking around and going up things and like trying to get the high ground and so on and so forth. That is, if you're a gun user like Nell is, probably not the same for Tonk.
No.
And also none of the water is irradiated, so you can like creep around in the rivers and things without like constantly rocketing toward death. That's nice. Anyhow, yeah, I walk around with Joshua and I do a couple things. There's like I think some Sorrows who have been captured and taken as slaves by some White Legs, so I free them. There's a bridge that some White Legs have taken over and I clear them out. And then the White Legs are also desecrating the Sorrows burial grounds. So I go over and I clear that out. And then I'm heading toward the map marker that's like where I'm supposed to go for the evacuation point, fighting White Legs all along the way. And I see in the distance through VATS the named NPC that you mentioned, who Salt Upon Wounds, I think is his name. And you can get some information about him from Graham earlier, and he's just like the war chief for the White Legs, and he's completely despicable and enjoys killing and so on and so forth. Apparently, if you get up to the end, you can like there's like another sort of like final scene with Graham where like Graham wants to execute him, and you can like either encourage that or like talk him back from it. And you can also talk with Salt Upon Wounds yourself and like get him to stand down and flee. I did none of these things because, again, I saw him from a great distance through VATS, and I just shot him in the head until he died. So I, killed him before either Graham or I could get up there to start that dialogue. And then I found Daniel, and he's like, "Great, like we're gonna get out of here. Also blow up this tunnel."
Yeah, I think that's what must have happened to me. I think that when I saw that named guy and I threw that grenade and half blew him up, I think I must have short circuited this same thing the same way you did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I killed a bunch of other people on top of that. Okay.
Yeah. So I got. Did you talk with Waking Cloud at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's your after you meet with Follows Chalk. She's your second companion. I did. She seems pretty cool.
Yeah. I was just wondering because so like Dead Money, you get kind of ending slides for various characters here, and I got one for her, but I didn't get one for Follows Chalk because I didn't do his personal quest.
His personal quest seems pretty cool. I got the beginning of it and didn't follow through enough. Did you read about that?
So wait, what do you think his personal quest was?
The one about being a singer?
I didn't get any of that. Is that it? No.
Oh my god. Okay, well, this is the reason. So, so what was her name? Waking Cloud?
Yeah.
So she's pretty cool just in a general sense because she is a midwife. And she just is like an interesting person, and she's like really into Daniel because when she was having her third child, she was going to die, and he like helped save her life. So I think she's a cool character in a general sense. But yeah, the Follows Chalk, when you talk to him, he constantly is saying these things where he's like, yeah, but we're not civilized. And you're like, what? And eventually that comes up enough times. He's like, the civilized lands, you're doing some cool stuff. And you can eventually, after a couple of times of that coming up, you get a dialogue option. It's like, why do you keep saying civilized? Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, look, when I was a kid, they had a trader come in who had a guy with him who was just like, had like cool hair and a guitar. And so Follows Chalk was like, hey, just talking to him and asking him what he does. And the guy was like, I'm a singer. I just go from place to place singing music. And Follows Chalk was like, that's the coolest thing on the planet. I wish that I could go and do that. I wish like I could live somewhere where someone is just a singer. And like, this is a cool, like all of the like representational problems, like obviously are still sitting here, but like as a quest about within the imagination of Fallout about like what a tribal is and how they interact with the, the rest of the world. This is a really cool setup of like, because of course they have like performers or whatever, but they don't have the idea of like going along a trade route and singing, which is not a thing in their culture. And, so I didn't really follow it up, but I did read about it afterward, and that is the Lonesome Wanderer. And so you can talk to him you can be like, and it sounds like you didn't do this, but you can be like, yeah, I got that guy a job. And he could be like, oh my God, wow. So I think that's neat. It's a neat little quest thing. But I don't know, but there was a personal quest beyond that?
Yeah, for Waking Cloud. So she talks about how her children and her husband have already evacuated Zion. Most of the tribals are already gone, right? The people that are still here are basically people that Daniel and Graham can expect to like be able fighters, right, against the White Legs. And she mentions that her kids are gone and everything. And she understands why this has happened, but she's like, she's wondering about them. And so you get the option to ask Daniel if he knows anything about how her husband and children are doing. And you can talk to Daniel about this. Some other amusing things about Daniel, just to preface this. when you talk with the Sorrows, particularly I think with Waking Cloud, it also becomes clear that like they have taken to Christianity very easily
Mhm.
because they can conflate the father in the cave, which is their name for like the survivalist who like watched over the tribe in time immemorial or whatever. They
Mhm.
can so easily conflate him with like the idea of the Christian God, especially because there's like a mother and a son who are mentioned. So you can talk to Daniel, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm here to witness." And then you can be like, "You realize that they only believe you because they assume you're talking about the same God that they've always already worshipped, right?" And his
Mhm.
response is something like, "Dang, I'd never thought about that, but it makes a lot of sense." So that's that's his response. And then when you talk to him about Waking Cloud's family, he's like, "Oh yeah, well, her kids got out all right, but unfortunately there was an ambush and her husband has actually died, and I haven't told her because I need her head in the game, right, for what's getting ready to happen." And he also says, "Please don't tell her." So immediately I go over and I tell her, expecting and hoping that this is going to like introduce some sort of fissure between Waking Cloud and the Sorrows and the false non-gambling god that Daniel and Joshua keep going on about. However, in the ending slide, I find out that it is actually what happens is Waking Cloud, because she finds out, she's upset. But then she understands why Daniel did not tell her. She sort of understands like why that choice was made in the moment. And it is actually the opposite. If you want to introduce division between them, you don't tell her, and then she finds out on her own after the game, and that's what introduces a schism between Daniel and the Sorrows.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so my go
I
ahead.
was gonna say the other thing that's funny is that like because I didn't really play nice with Joshua Graham, I don't get an ending slide for him. Like the DLC makes such a big deal about him, puts him so front and center, and then like he doesn't even get an ending because I wasn't nice enough to him.
Yeah, I'm not really quite. I mean, what happens broad strokes for me is that like White Legs take over Zion Valley and they're like bad stewards and they screw it up and they can't even join the Legion because they didn't kill any of the people they were supposed to kill.
Hmm.
And so it turns into infighting and they destroy the whole place.
Hmm. Same.
And like, it's like real finger waggy. You should have exterminated these people.
Yep. It's
You
like
should have killed all those goblins.
this beautiful national park would have persisted. I don't know how the White Legs were polluting Zion, to be frank, but apparently they did.
Farting in the water. That's why there were no rats. No one farted in the water. But so there's that, and then it's like, yeah, they left. So basically, what happens is like all these groups leave, and they basically kind of become one group. It seems like that's the kind of implication is
Mhm.
afterward, and they make it out, and I blow up the thing, and because of the help that they received from the courier, basically, they began to, after they resettled somewhere else, they made a long and arduous trip every year to trade with the Happy Trails Caravan Company.
Mhm.
I don't know why they would do that because they're all dead. So no one knows the Happy Trails Caravan Company did anything for them. But that's kind of what I got for the ending slides. I can't think of anything else that like kind of stuck out from there. Yeah. Is there anything else that happened for you?
Yeah, no, all of mine was basically the same. I think the only slight difference is I got a slide for Daniel talking about how he like he spent the rest of his life wondering if he made the right choice. Again, a little bit of the like, oh, maybe Daniel, who wanted to flee, would have been happier if he actually stayed and exterminated the White Legs or something. Um, However, I think if you do that, you also get a bad ending for him. Like he's unhappy with that as well. So I guess the point of Daniel is that he's conflicted forever. Good for him. And I think the only other detail I wanted to mention was, oh yes, the dead horses. Um, the the new horses like continue to revere Joshua Graham, but have absolutely no time for his actual religious beliefs. Like
yeah, so
they just
that's the one that I got as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like revisiting these for whatever reason. I don't remember seeing a Dead Horses one, but that's the one that I got. Yeah, I was looking for the exact language what I got. So this is for the Sorrows. So the Dead Horses just kind of go back up the Colorado, I guess, and then the Sorrows, they're the ones who go to Grand Staircase because you got to get the map for it. And they say this is the specific language. Daniel evacuated the Sorrows from Zion, but due to the courier's neglect, the Whitelegs butchered many along the way. Neglect. I went from point to point along the road. What was I supposed to do? But yeah, for 2 generations, many would die still lamenting the loss of Zion. So they hated that shit.
Dang.
Yep.
Yeah, I had a slightly better version, and I think it's because I completed all of those optional quests about freeing the Sorrows who had been captured and so on.
Mm-hmm.
That's Honest Hearts.
That's Honest Hearts. Yeah, I'm looking here. I don't think maybe I did get cards for Joshua and Daniel. I don't remember them at all, which is really weird. But anyway, yep, that's Honest Hearts. It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not the worst one that I've ever played. It's not the best one I've ever played.
I really found it interesting poking around Zion. Like the quests were kind of like meh because it was definitely just like go into this building and pick up some things. But I liked sort of the feel of the game and the way that it changed. Also, fun thing that I just pulled up from this wiki page. Here on behind the scenes, Joshua Graham's endings were slightly inspired by the Wilfred Owen poem, "The Parable of the Old Men and the Young." So this is apparently something that Joshua Sawyer has said. Do you think, Cameron, that it was Joshua Sawyer who put in all of those weird Canadian poetry references back in Fallout 2?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. No, Joshua, if you're listening, let us know.
Let us know. Let us know if you're the one who put all that Canadian poetry in. No, I think actually someone has followed up with us on that, right? Didn't we get tweeted at about that, about the Canadian poetry stuff?
I don't remember. I the only thing I can remember is maybe someone telling us they don't know.
Yeah, that might have been it.
Yeah.
It might have been someone who got tweeted in and they were like, I don't know where that came
Actually,
from.
maybe that was Sawyer. Maybe we asked him and he was like, I do not know.
Yeah, I don't remember. Well, if you did it, if you were lying to us back then, or that didn't happen multiple years ago, let us know. Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting thing. But yeah, so next time, which one are we playing?
Next time, we will be playing Old World Blues.
Yeehaw.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to get along that trail, and we will be back in 2 weeks with Old World Blues. Michael, you want to take us out with a catchphrase?
War never changes, but Fallout sure does.